Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Leslie Rogers with Mental Health Talk, Food for Thought Thursdays with Dr. Rogers. Welcome. Today's show is so exciting because I have so many special guests on to continue to talk about COVID Awareness Month. And this month is ending out with students coming on and talking about how COVID has impacted their lives from their perspectives. You know, in the past, we've had guests on, this past month, we've had guests on to talk about how it's impacted them, but they're all adults. What about the children themselves, right? They're most impacted as well. So let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Leslie Rogers. I am a mental health professional. And again, we're closing out this month to talk about COVID and its impact. Okay, so let me introduce my guest. We have a lot of special people here today. We have Madison Bryan, who is in college. She attends Savannah College of Art and Design, SCAD, in Savannah, Georgia. She's a senior in college. Brady is a sophomore in high school in Oregon. And then we have Madison Triplett, who's in the 8th grade, and she's out of Maryland. And we have their parents, Lisa and Priscilla, here. Let's welcome them. And I also want to introduce Eboni Clipper, who's a licensed clinician. She specializes in child, adolescent, and adults. And I thought it would be a good idea to have her come on to give tips on how to cope during this difficult time. Okay. So thank you guys for coming, and we're going to get right into it. So hopefully we'll have kids coming too. I had sent out messages to have kids listen to the show because I thought that this would be really important to talk about your stories and how COVID, this pandemic, has impacted your lives. I know that you are not in school. Most of you guys are home, away from school, and it's been a bit challenging, right? So I'll start with you, Brady. Brady, how is school for you? How is it? How long have you been home?
Months.
Months. Yeah. How are you dealing with that?
I'm doing better than I thought I would.
Yeah.
But it could be better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And whatnot. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So being at home, it sounds like it's been a bit challenging, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Madison Bryan? We have two Madisons here. Madison Bryan, what about you? You're in college. How has COVID impacted you since you've been home?
At first it was really just hard to adjust to, and also like a lot of anxiety because I was really afraid of catching COVID. I have not caught COVID.
Right.
Yeah, so at first it was just like a little scary and then a little cabin fevery, just being outside a lot. Now I've pretty much adjusted. It's not bad. Luckily I'm an introvert, so
yeah.
Being outside is pretty cozy.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were mostly impacted because of the anxiety about catching COVID, not so much as being home away from school.
Yeah. It's really, I'm still afraid of catching COVID, but like it was just kind of like worrying about my friends and myself and my family members, like which I'm sure everyone is doing. We're worried about.
Yeah, and let me tell you, we all are. I know I am. I'm a bit anxious too about catching COVID. I think I disclosed on the last session that my mother tested COVID positive. She's negative now. She received her second negative COVID test today, so that's awesome. But it is anxiety provoking about that. Yeah. So being home away from friends, when I've talked to several of you, it seems like that's really challenging. Has that been challenging for you, Madison, since you're in college, being home away from friends and your peers?
Yeah. It stinks because it's like you go through waves of why is no one reaching out to me, but also you have to be understanding. Like it's really hard to remember that, like, I even struggle myself, like reaching out to like all of my friends and like make sure everyone's doing okay. But it's just a balance of being understanding of, like everyone's going through the same thing right now, if not better or worse. So,
Yeah. Mhm.
it stinks, but doing my
Yeah.
best.
How often do you keep in touch with your friends? Because they're in Savannah and you're back in Maryland.
Not all of them, but some of them every day, and then others here and there. There's like gaps of like weeks in between.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Okay. Yeah. And I found that was really interesting that, Brady talked about earlier that he's actually lost friends, lost friendships. Brady, I want to talk to you a little bit about that because where were those friends? Were they long distance or?
They were actually ones that I had here in Oregon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that because of the online school, not seeing them every day, I think it was sort of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So not being able to be in school with them, you guys kind of distance each other. Especially you can't be around each other because, we have to social distance. So being at home, not being around your friends and family because of social distancing, right? Yeah. So when you say you guys just lost connection, just haven't talked as much? Yeah. Mhm.
Pretty much.
Okay. Madison Triplett. So how's being home impacted you? How are you doing being at home, being away from school?
Well, nothing really changed except for we're just not going to school.
Yeah, nothing's really changed that much. Do you miss school at all?
A little bit.
I'm sorry, what was that?
A little bit.
A little bit. What do you miss about school?
We'll like socialize and stuff like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What about schoolwork? I heard that schoolwork is even harder that you guys are at home than when you were in school. Is that true? For you,
My
Matt?
opinion, not really.
Not really. It's not really difficult for you. So what's the most difficult part for you, Madison, with being at home from school?
Trying to stay awake.
Trying to stay awake. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially when you're doing schoolwork in bed or in your rooms, right? So trying to stay awake has been really challenging for you. Yeah. Brady, what's been most challenging for you with staying at home?
I think at home I have a lot of distractions, so sometimes it can be more difficult to focus on the work.
Yeah. So distractions. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Madison, what's been most difficult with you, Madison Bryan?
Just staying motivated. It definitely created some separation between like working at home and going into class I think maybe some people can relate to that as well. Like, because usually you go to class and then you come home and do homework, and now it's like all in one space.
Yeah.
So it's harder to stay motivated and
Right.
on top of things.
Yeah. Let me tell you, I was just talking to someone the other day and I was talking about how, students are in school, and for some students, school becomes a support system, right? It becomes a support system where you're around your friends and peers, and even teachers are support systems because sometimes you can talk to teachers about things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to talk to your parents about, right? Have any of you guys experienced, that loss of support, that sense of support system being at school? Especially being around friends.
Brady was telling me the other day that he misses being able to go up to the teacher's desk and have a private little conversation with the teacher, because even in their office hours, it's a room full of students and they hear everything you say to one another.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can see how that can be a bit challenging for there to talk to you, and be supportive in certain ways. So I can see how that can be challenging. Eboni, what do you think? You have any comments?
I mean, I think a lot of the kids have gotten super creative because the standard mode of trying to communicate, trying to connect has just been taken away in a sense. So I do have a lot of clients that are using the apps like Snapchat and even TikTok. And then there was another, I think they call it Discord. Or I don't know if you guys know of this, but it's Discord, and like I have a lot of clients that use this and they can talk to a whole bunch of people. But the ways to communicate and the ways to stay motivated, to just be engaged and just stay present. I think because of the pandemic, because of COVID, it's been tricky. But it also has shown how kids of all ages and adults have had to get creative and like tap into other ways to really, it's like they're a part of a community or they're a part of something.
Right. Ebony, what are challenges that you've seen in your practice with students and the pandemic?
A lot of it, I think the biggest thing I hear is the virtual school and that type of platform, and just feeling very disconnected, or a lot of my clients feel like they get lost because of the class sizes and things of that nature. And the other, I guess, common theme that I'm seeing is just sometimes the kids get bored and they don't know what to do. And so it's like, if you think about it, they're like, we've been in this situation for a year and nothing's really changed. So a lot of them are getting bored, they're getting angsty, they're getting restless. And it's like, it's kind of like that ruminating thought where it's like, what's going to happen? What's next? And then I want to go back to, I think one of the Madison said balance. And I think a lot of it is finding the balance, trying to create some sort of balance, which once again, getting creative and trying to figure out what does new balance look like in this new setting,
Right.
this new environment we're in. So I think those are a lot of the common themes, just trying to find balance, trying to maintain friendships, trying to still get used to virtual learning and the ups and downs with that. So that's, and the lost connections, I think those are really the biggest themes that I've encountered.
Right. Yeah. And I think that transition from being in school every day, all day, to being at home, then not knowing what to do or not, so absolutely. One of the questions I wanted to ask is, what are advantages to being at home? I know, Brady, you and I talked earlier about you being home with your pets, being able to spend more time with your pets. But when you think about advantages and thinking about ways that can kind of be productive in being home, what are advantages to being at home from school? Madison, College Madison.
I think for me, it's just kind of more of a peaceful environment. And while it is difficult to stay motivated sometimes, it is somewhat more structured. Like I have created my place where I work, and also I am privileged to have the company of my family and my pets as well, or pet. No, that's very nice. And also food, because when you're in college, sometimes you don't get all those great meals that you would at home.
Right.
So that's definitely one of the major pluses.
Excellent. I want to go back quickly. Brady, you said something earlier about sometimes there's distractions in the home. Ebony, I wanted you to talk about that a little bit.
I think a lot of it is just building and getting creative. It's about building your own little environment within your environment. Some things we can't control. So I have clients that have younger brothers and younger sisters, and trying to find that peace and quiet and to like limit those distractions gets difficult. So what we do, we just really talk about, okay, let's look within our environment. Where can we kind of build or put some things in place that can not completely control others, because we know that we can't do that, but how can we limit some of that stuff? So do we need to have earphones? Do we need to put a towel underneath the crack of the door to try and muffle the sound? Do we need to have like a nice little schedule that says like between this time and this time, this is what's happening? You know, if you guys could, you know, maybe work together and, you know, stop doing whatever the distraction is, that would be great. And I think a lot of it, what I tell my clients is to, especially my adolescents, is to talk to the parent as well and see how you guys can collaborate. Sometimes it's like I have to figure this out all on my own, and it's like, no, you don't have to do that. And it's easier said than done, and I completely understand that. But you know, there's this whole collaborating factor that comes into place, and so it's about getting creative. It's about figuring out what I can control in a sense, understanding that I can't control everything, but I can kind of create my own little sanctuary within my own environment.
Right. And that was a good idea about the headphones, possibly putting on headphones to kind of drown out the noise, external noise. So those are good points. Does anyone have any questions for Ebony?
I want to tell you one of the big changes that happened at his school, you know, because we went suddenly virtual last spring. They normally have 8 classes per session, and that was too many to keep track of in a virtual environment. So this year they changed it around so he only has 4 classes. So it enables, you know, a better way to keep up with the work. And they actually get to go like a little deeper in the material. So that would be one of the, you know, bigger advantages. But go ahead with your question there, Brady.
All right. So when there was school like in person and you'd be going down the hall, you'd have these stupid little interactions with the random people. With the distance learning, is there some way, like, do you have any ideas or suggestions on how to have something like that?
So we can't have the physical interactions, right? We can't physically walk down the hallway and have like a elbow bump or like one of those fun looks from across the hallway. So how do we now get creative within the environment that we're dealt with, right? So I picture, and I've seen this like with the Zoom stuff, I know that sometimes there's breaks within virtual learning. Sometimes it's just duplicating that, but in that type of setting. A lot of it is reaching out still. You know, we can't do a lot because of the social distancing, but we can still make those connections. They just look different. So once we're realizing that the connection is still there, it's just different, right? I've seen kids in a Zoom setting where, you know, they'll, you know, not goof off, but, you know, they have like their little moments that when the teacher's, you know, probably doing something else or there's like a little short break. So it's all about just seeing how I can duplicate this, but in this environment. I can still have those interactions because the interaction is just the moment, right? So it's all about figuring out how can I create a moment in a virtual setting. Can I say that I am, oh my gosh, and I am, that's dating me. Like a like a message of some sort, you know, so I can still have the interaction, so I can still have that A-B connection.
Right.
Yeah, you've confused the young ones. They don't know what you were referring to.
I aged myself. I've been doing it all day. So like a little G chat type of deal, if that's more on par.
Excellent. And, you know, Brady gave an excellent idea earlier, though. He said he actually suggested, you know, having students come together in like a Zoom session for lunch or a Zoom session, you know, and come together. That's an excellent idea, you know, to kind of increase that engagement. You know, you're not face to face, but you can have this structured Zoom call, you know, and have students come together and then they can at least see each other. You know,
especially if you make use of the breakout rooms and treat them like, you know, the lunch tables.
Yeah. Yeah. Great suggestion. So Madison, Triplett, and Priscilla, what have you seen? Have you noticed any changes like changes in Madison since she's been home from school?
When her changes, she want to sleep most of the time. Sleep. Sometimes lack of motivation.
Motivation. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Don't have that get up and go attitude as opposed to when you go in person school because, going to the school bus, interacting with other children. So she's up and alert and ready to go. But when you're home,
Mhm.
that motivation is not there. So it takes more for
Right.
her to get herself up and going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what have you done to keep her motivated? Like, what do you usually do to try to
Just
get
talk to her,
her? Mm-hmm.
Good.
make sure her mental is together.
Right.
Have conversations,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
go for walks, walk
Right.
our dog,
Mm-hmm.
joke, laugh, watch movies,
Yeah.
have fun.
Exactly. Have fun. And it's crazy because, in school that you're used to go, 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 go. You're changing classes. You're always with your friends, from morning to 3 o'clock in there? No, some schools in at 2. But all day with your friends, you're around peers and supports. And now you're home, some parents are working, so you're home. Some kids are home alone, right? And it's like, what do you do but sleep? You get tired. I would imagine that you get tired even quicker because you're at home, right? Because you're bored, bored and not sure what to do. Ebony, what do you say about that?
I always say try the structure that you're used to, because it's so easy to have this lax structure because the environment's different. So I have some clients who literally try to recreate their school day. As far the times are different, but it's like I know what I have to do from this time to this time, this time to this time, break, and they follow that. As far as other clients that I have, kind of going back to what Mom said, getting up, moving around, switching the room that you're doing most of your classes in. If you're so used to doing it in the bedroom, let's try a different room. Upstairs, let's go downstairs. Even just like that change of scenery can do so much. I had that for one of my high school kids. They were like, all I do is spend all my time on my laptop, in class, in my bed. I have no motivation to do anything. It's my bed. It's my bedroom. So we understand that. So how about you try the kitchen?
Right.
I don't get sleepy in the kitchen. But it's kind of training our brains like that. It's like, let me try a different room. And so far for her, everyone's different. I'm aware of that. But so far for her, that works. So it's something as simple as changing the room, going outside, getting some sunshine, letting the cold air hit your face real quick. So those are some of the suggestions that I have.
And another excellent idea that you said is change the scenery. I can't, if I'm not in my room studying or reading and I'm in my bed, that's what I want to do. I either fall asleep, I find myself yarning because I get extra tired, so I have to come out of my room and either sit at a desk or sit in the living room on the sofa. I have to change up because I just lose motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Ebony, I want to ask you, in your practice, is there any warning signs for the moms here or those that's watching? Any warning signs that you see that parents should be aware of, like warning signs that could suggest, depressed mood or anxiety, and those warning signs? And then how do you suggest that they talk to their children?
So I think the first part, just looking for just changes in the behavior, changes in the mood, and like, I don't want to say marked or drastic, but you guys know your kids the best. So sometimes it's that feeling of hopelessness, is the sleep changes. If we're talking about depression, sometimes it's that loss of energy. Sometimes keep saying sometimes because everything's different, but there might be low energy because we're in a virtual setting, because we're home all day, because we can't go outside. So a lot of it is, asking those questions. And the question can be, how are you doing? How are you feeling? You know what I mean? And also the concentration problems, once again, that could be because we're sitting in front of the computer all day and tired eyes, tired brain. but just really paying attention to those noticeable lows or those noticeable changes, even with appetite, and weight changes as well. Um, for if there's any type of, SI, suicidal ideation, or just a suicidal type of mind, those tend to they tend to go from most noticeable, where it's me verbally telling you, this is my plan, this is what I want to do, right? Sometimes it's a little more hidden. It can mimic a lot of the depressive symptoms, but I actually printed some stuff out. Um, but as far as like the least obvious, it could be physical pains. It could be how their body's feeling. What else do I have? Changes in sleep patterns as well. A lot of these things mimic, not saying that because they are having physical pains and their sleep patterns changing definitely means that, oh my gosh, my kid's suicidal. No, it could be depression. It could be um, anxiety, worry, nervousness, ruminating thoughts, just that constant fear, tightness, really just paying attention, asking those questions, and you can ask, are you feeling anxious? Well, what does anxious mean? Well, are you feeling nervous? Are you feeling worried? Are you feeling depressed? What does depressed mean? Do you feel sad? Do you feel like you don't really have a lot of motivation? Let's talk about that. So getting specific if possible, but I think those are some of the things that parents can look for. And even kids can notice about themselves too, because kids are so insightful. Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is it's easier said than done. It's to communicate. Talk about what's happening. Talk about the things that are going on with the pandemic and COVID. Um, Obviously, tailor the conversation for the age of the child or whoever you're talking to. But I think there needs to be more of a conversation because we're all worried. Our stress levels look different, right? Our worries look different, but I think it's okay to talk about these things. And I think once we start talking about what we're seeing and what we're going through, it opens up so much more. And it also provides a level of comfort, especially with kids, because some things they don't want to talk about. Some things they don't want to share, but we know this, right? So it's all about, and I'll keep repeating myself, getting creative, creating a different environment within the environment that we're given, if you will, the one that we can't necessarily change. I think a lot of the things to look out for as far as depression, anxiety, if you're worried about suicide or anything like that, is to just the hopelessness, the lack of sleep, the low energy, the nervousness, the tension, the worry, those ruminating thoughts, the aggression. Sometimes anxiety and depression manifests as something that looks completely different than what we think of anxiety or what we think of depression. Sometimes it can be irritability. It could be mood swings. It could be those ups and downs. It could be that attitude. It's like, where did that come from? Right? Sometimes those things mimic other things. So it's really just one, being in tune with ourselves, and then turning it outward and looking at the people who are in, our homes. As far as what to do to keep the engagement, to keep things going, to create this environment or this sense of like, we can get through this in some sort of sense. I have
Right.
just a couple of things down. Keep routines in place. Yes, the world outside of our doors has changed, but there's some things that we can still, in a sense, control. Keep those routines, keep those chores. If they were doing something while school was in session, let's try to keep that going. We can modify it, absolutely, because life happens. But sometimes structure, which is what I was hearing some of the students talk about, the structure. Let's try to create that. Let's try to keep that in there. Having a schedule, I think that goes back to the structure. It takes work because we got to now do something that we're not used to doing. And it can be as simple, honestly, as, wake up, breakfast, Zoom school, break. Like it could be bump, bump, bump. It could be very, very basic. Do what you feel that you can maintain, right? We're not reinventing the wheel. Do what you think can be maintained. A lot of other things are also limiting various sources of that external information that we're receiving. Sometimes it's easy to be glued to our phone and scrolling through Facebook and Instagram and looking at the news and looking at this and looking at that. Understanding that's going to breed a sense of anxiety, of worry, of overwhelm, and making sure and limiting what the kids are looking at as well, because you're looking at it more, 10 times more, they're also looking at it as well. Sometimes they can't understand it. So if we don't have the communication in place, they're looking at things, but they're not sharing it. Am I making some sense? Let's see, stay in touch. Yes, we know about Zoom calls and Zoom family meetings and Zoom this and Zoom that. Keep doing that. I mean, I know at least if you have an iPhone, you can do group FaceTimes. You can still social distance within your bubble, what your comfort level is. You can get outside, you can spread out, you can do like the drive-bys they were doing earlier when all this stuff was happening. So it's all about getting out there, still trying to maintain those connections, even if it's just sending an email, even if it's a quick text message, right?
Yeah.
And then, this is one that I really saw that I thought was so important. And it goes to something I said earlier. Kids in the loop, but also keep it simple depending on the age. So if a child is saying, I want to see my grandparents, and it's more so like, well, we can't see them because we don't want to get them sick. Don't say that depending on the age. Just say, we can't see them this week, but we will be able to see them soon. It's not a complete lie, because eventually one day we will be able to see them soon. We just don't know when. So really tailor the things that we're saying to the kids. And then the one that I also think is interesting is sometimes the path to least resistance can sometimes be the best. Picking battles. It's so easy for all of us to be in the house with each other all day, every day, over and over, and you get tired, you get frustrated, you get, all the emotions. That's okay. You're human. It's going to happen. But sometimes we try to fight battles that, just let it, just leave it alone. Pick and choose your battles wisely while maintaining your own sense of mental health and really recognizing what's going on within you. And the biggest one, ask and accept help. I think sometimes we don't ask for help. I think sometimes we don't accept help. And it doesn't make you weak or anything like that to ask for help. Help is out there. It can be a neighbor. It can be a friend. It's kind of like we tell other people, oh, go ask for help. Why aren't you asking for help? Why can't I do that for myself? Maybe I need to try that. So those are just some of the things, that I have. So, hopefully.
And those are excellent tips. Excellent tips. I do want to, and I was reading some research about allowing kids extra breaks too when they're at home, instead of having them sit at the computer all day. Allow them extra breaks. When they're at school, their attention is being maintained by whatever the teacher is doing or by whatever's going around inside the school. But when they're at home, the attention span decreases. So give them extra breaks. And also I wrote down to normalize their experiences. I'm a big advocate for normalizing their experiences, meaning, if mom is feeling anxious, then, being able to normalize the children's experiences. Guess what? I have similar experiences myself, or, I get lonely too sometimes, or, I'm bored too sometimes. Not being, some of us are working from home, right? I was 100% telework. So being able to normalize their experiences, to let them know that it's okay to be a bit anxious, right? But let's talk about it. It's okay to feel a bit down, but let's talk about it, and offer that open communication between the children and the parents. What advice do you have for Madison, who's in college?
Oh, wow. So, Miss Madison, I mean, it sounds like, just from the things that you were saying earlier, that you've been trying to find a balance. You've been trying to find or create an environment within your environment. And I think a college campus is a lot different. Are you on campus?
No, I am not on campus. I'm currently at home. With my family.
Okay. I don't think a lot of these are going to be too different depending on the grade level or the age range, I think a lot of this stuff is still the same. It's getting creative, reconnecting, finding new ways to connect, and really just using our words, but also making sure we're taking a self inventory of how we're feeling, what our thoughts are throughout the day, what's the emotion behind some of these things, and really just kind of asking ourselves these questions like, something basic. Am I okay? How am I feeling? And the last one, ask and accept the help. Really reaching out. We're in a situation where we're forced to reach outward. It's not so close on our fingertips anymore like it used to be. Now we have to do like 3 more steps. You understand what I mean? So I think a lot of these can transfer to most age ranges. It's just tailored, it's tweaked just a tad bit depending on the fall. Mm-hmm.
And noticing the differences between Madison, she's in college, and then the younger kids, younger kids may present, down mood or et cetera, and somatic symptoms such as tummy ache or, not feeling well, running up in the morning. Madison,
have a headache or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and then Madison, being more vocal with her, with her emotions, being able to say, like she said on the show, I'm just a bit anxious, and the anxiety about returning back to school because we know that's coming, right? So the anxiety about returning back to school, the anxiety about am I going to be vaccinated, which I will say, according to Dr. Natasha Kalia that was on the show last week, there is a age requirement or age restriction for the vaccine. So if you guys are looking into getting your kids vaccinated, check your medicals because there are age restrictions on the vaccine. I'm not sure what those ages are. I think they're still in the research phase. So, but returning back to school and that anxiety about returning back to school and how I'm going to keep myself safe, right? Mm-hmm. How to keep yourself safe, continue to use hand sanitizers, continue to wear the mask, right? Mm-hmm. Even after being vaccinated, continue to wear the mask, continue to practice social distancing, right?
Absolutely.
I do want to again thank you, Eboni Clipper, for coming on, licensed clinician, Priscilla Curry and Madison Triplett, Madison Bryan, and Lisa Carper and Brady. Oh, they just got caught off. So we will have this discussion again, but I did want to give the students an opportunity to tell their stories as well. Okay. Again, this is Dr. Leslie Rogers, Mental Health Talk, Food for Thought Thursdays with Dr. Rogers. I will see you again next week, Thursday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.